There are two ways to edit object graphs within V7. The first is to go to our world browser, and with the Objects tab selected, and with our object selected, there's an Edit Graph button in the bottom of the toolbar. The other way to edit an object graph, select Object at the top of the interface, and select Edit Object Graph. If we take a look at the graph of this sphere, we can see the three primary input and output nodes that will be contained within every single object graph. These are the position, orientation, and size, allowing us to link any object to any other object's position, orientation, or size. Some objects in our scene have more than these three input and output nodes. If we take a look at a graph for the torus, we can see we have a thickness option. And in this example, I've linked our size of our sphere to the overall thickness of our torus. And if we look at the function, we can see we have the thickness option tied to an external input node connected to the size of the sphere. Now, because of the difference in vector scale and also the input and output, I've used the decomposer node to break down our vector into the x, y, and z. And in this case, I have just our x connection connected to our thickness. And because vector size is larger than our number output, I'm just dividing this with a blender node connected to a constant node with a value of 200. If we take a look at a graph for the sunlight, we can see two more options than the primary three, which is a color and softness input and output node. If we take a look at a point light, we now have a power input and output added to the function. Moving on to the spotlight, we can see the 5 extra nodes than the primary 3, involving color, softness, power, spread, and falloff input and output nodes. Taking a look at a graph for a camera, we can see there are a lot more options than the primary 3. The ability to attach our focal, depth of field, focus, exposure, blur length, film aberration, horizontal film shift, and vertical film shift to any other node in a scene. When we have plants loaded in and look at their graph, we have a new input and output node for wind. And I also want to note that this wind output is connected to our wind control that we have access to within the top view, which we can see represented by this blue arrow. And this is not connected to our breeze preview that we'll find in the wind tab of the atmosphere editor, because the wind and breeze are completely different options and settings within view. If we go back and take a look at the primary 3 inputs and outputs, we can see that the input node is an external dependency. By default, these objects are dependent on themselves. Now we can either change these external dependencies specifically to the objects we'd like to link them to, or we can add in new external dependency input nodes so that we can preserve these original 3 options in case we ever want to use them without having to add in any other external nodes.